Welcome, everyone, to Fintech Mavericks. We are live here at Brex headquarters in New York City, kicking off Women's History Month. I'm so excited to be here. I'm your host, Nicole Casperson, and with me is my co-host, Drew Glover, co-founder of Fiat Growth. Now, a little backstory of how Fintech Mavericks came to be. Around 2 years ago, my friend Drew over there, he came to me with the idea of a podcast all about interviewing founders and leaders in fintech who are tying profit and purpose together. Obviously, I loved this idea. But then 2 years go by, and all of a sudden, he's back. Like, hey, let's make this thing really happen. I think I got a great partner. Let's go. And that's when I got to meet Danny and the Brex team. And all of a sudden, this podcast comes to fruition, and we're sitting in front of a live audience today. How cool is that? We can applause for that moment, yeah. Yes. Drew, you know what we need for these moments? We need like an SNL if they have like a applaud card.
I know, live studio audience.
Yeah, yes. But welcome, Drew.
Thank you, and honored to be here, Women's History Month. And I'm also super excited to be with two incredible founders that are gonna tell us what it's like to be a Fintech Maverick. It's been incredible getting to know Nicole over the years. Obviously, I've been following her incredible journey, and I knew that, you know, both of us, in terms of the way we think about how fintech can make an impact on this world, would collide at some point. I'm just so happy it happened over Fintech Mavericks.
Yeah, well, thank you, Drew. So today, I am excited to get into this conversation with these two incredible founders. First, we have Eve Halimi, co-founder and co-CEO of Alinea Invest, a platform that's revolutionizing how Gen Z women build wealth. Over 90% of their users are women, and they're seeing insane growth. We'll dive into all of that. And second, we are joined by Christie Horvath, founder and CEO of Wagmo, a company that's changing the game in pet wellness and insurance. With over 60% of US households owning pets, Wagmo is seeing a real need by helping pet parents navigate expensive and stressful pet care. Raise your hand if you have a pet. All right, cool. We don't play Candy Crush, but we got pets.
That's what we like to see.
Well, let's dive in. So Eve, I'm actually going to start with you. Alinea Invest is on fire right now, from 250,000 downloads last year to over 150K, and then a 6x revenue growth. What was the tipping point for your company's rapid growth, and what's been the driving force behind it?
Great question. So we, on the product front, we introduced what we call AI Ally, which is a sort of financial coach right in the onboarding, and she acts as your financial best friend, essentially. She talks to you and she gives you a plan and an amount to invest every month. And that was an incredible unlock for us, because we realized that a lot of young people and a lot of young women need hand-holding and guidance with their investing journey. And so we did it in the form of AI. And so we have incorporated AI Ally in lots of more parts of the app now, and we are going to personalize the experience even more so and bring wealth management to the masses, essentially. And so we're very excited about what's coming next. But yes, we have over 1 million downloads today, with 70% of them being Gen Z and 92% female. I mean,
have you ever heard numbers like that before?
First and foremost, yes. But one thing I think is really interesting is, coming out of a market that was really heavy in consumer finance. Now we saw a little dip over the last couple of years, and now we're coming back up a bit, where we're starting to see a lot more consumer fintech companies pop up. I'm just so curious, through the peaks and the valleys, how you've been able to maintain consumer growth and bringing a lot of people through the top of the funnel.
Yeah, short answer, TikTok. We figured out, I mean, look, Gen Zs are on their phone all day long. I'm sure you are too. And so we're meeting them where they are, right, on the For You page. And we've really cracked short form content that resonates and speaks to this generation. And on our hashtag Alinea app on TikTok, we have over 500 million views. And it's customers making videos, it's founder-led marketing. It's a lot of no more gatekeeping. Like investing isn't just for the finance bros, and it's really speaking to this white space that we see in the market that's really not being addressed. And so TikTok has been a huge proponent of our growth.
And do you mind just going a little bit deeper into like the mind of a Gen Z consumer as it pertains to fintech? I'm Frank. I'm a little bit curious just to understand what makes them tick. Yeah.
Do you not know the minds of a Gen Zer?
You know, I have a thesis.
Drew,
but, you know.
how old are you?
Gen Z.
So what captures the attention of a Gen Z is not a high quality ad. Like a Fidelity ad is not going to work on a Gen Z, but a 5-second short form video of us drinking coffee and saying like, hey girlies, like we know no one's talking to you about this stuff, but like we built an app for you, that gets their attention. And so it's about, again, messaging to them. We don't talk about the product. We talk about what it feels like when you are on Alinea, what it feels like to have financial independence. And all of that is converting people to try out the product.
I want to just double tap that note there that she's on TikTok and on the internet not talking about her product to her ICP, right? She's talking about the story and creating content for that direct consumer, something I think important to note. Christie, I want to go to you next. So Wagmo's mission is to take care of pets with a unique insurance angle. Interesting.
Insurance flavored.
Okay, got it. Insurance flavored. I like that.
Yeah.
This is better. More on the Gen Z wave, I think, with the wording. So what sparked your journey into pet insurance, and how did some of your experiences really shape the way you decided to build Wagmo?
So the short answer is I'm one of like 5 people in the world that actually love insurance. And I also happen to be obsessed with dogs. And so perfect storm of events. I grew up in the insurance industry, or started my career in the insurance industry by accident. I had a dog, of course, and in the middle of business school, my dog got sick. And so next thing I knew, I was confronted with what it means to be a pet parent, and the roughly 60% of you in the audience that raised your hands, I think, can all attest to that, that it's quite expensive and traumatic, and things always go wrong at 4 a.m. in the middle of the night. And realized that people needed support through that, and I never wanted finances to get in the way of taking care of your pet. And you know, one thing led to another, and we can get into more of the details of the founding story, but basically came to this idea that I think I can do this better, and I love insurance, and I love my dog, and if ever there was something that I was going to spend every day working on, it would be that. And so the rest is history.
Intersection of the two loves.
Yeah. Very lucky.
Yeah.
And I know that in full disclosure, I've partnered with Wagmo for years, and Christie and I know each other well, and I just happen to have a very close understanding of the business. But there was a transitional period where, you know, you kind of moved away from traditional insurance to create a new type of product.
Yeah.
Can you dive into that a bit more?
Yeah. So the reason I say insurance flavored is we've actually taken effectively the exact opposite approach of everybody else. So I don't know how many people are deeply following the pet insurance industry these days. But the way it's traditionally sold is pet insurance, which is emergencies and accidents and illness coverage, is sold first. And then if you want, you can buy a wellness rider. So you can buy up into preventative care coverage. The problem is if you have a dog or a cat with a pre-existing condition, or maybe you can't afford pet insurance, or maybe you don't want pet insurance, you're on your own for wellness. So there was no way for you to access care or financial support around the exam fees, the vaccines. All you pet parents know that every time you walk out of a vet office, it's like $400 no matter what you're going in there for. So we basically flipped the model on its head and said, instead of leading with insurance, which is cost prohibitive, has a whole bunch of exclusions, and frankly, people just don't trust it, let's instead build the product that they will use and that they'll use every year, which is wellness. And 7 or 8 years ago, pet wellness plans didn't really exist on a standalone basis, believe it or not. So we led with that. So it's not actually insurance, which becomes an important part of the story down the line from a distribution standpoint. But that was a big bet that we took was, you know, everybody had told us pet wellness couldn't be sold on a standalone basis. and I disagreed strongly and stood my ground, and here we are.
Fantastic. And I always, other things like preventative care is everything, right? You catch cancer in stage 1 and like there's a 90% chance of beating it. As long as you keep getting your teeth cleaned, you won't have to get your cavities filled. So obviously, super transformational. It's funny when you think about the insurance business, there's not a lot of innovation that happens in it. And you think about it from a high level standpoint, like this isn't a huge innovation. It's like pretty obvious, but it took a pretty special moment to kind of make that transition. I am curious, did that shift in the model, did that change your business model at all in terms of who you were selling to, who you were trying to partner with, how you scaled the business?
Yes and no. I mean, I think leading with wellness first was a big unlock for us from a regulatory standpoint. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure at least someone in here must be involved with insurance. We're at a fintech event. And in any respect, you can imagine that insurance is just like tied up with all sorts of regulatory constraints. You need a license to sell it. You can't discount it. You can't change the price. You can't really change the product structure. Any innovation that you develop in insurance is quite literally public knowledge, and so all someone has to do is actually copy paste your product and take it to market. So there's no innovation that you can actually really drive on the insurance product itself. So our whole thesis from day one was let's use wellness as like the gateway product into both a relationship with the customer, but also as a distribution tool, because wellness as we've created it is not regulated, so it's not an insurance product, which enables us a tremendous amount of flexibility when it comes to pricing it, discounting it, paying commissions on it. I can give it away for free, I can bundle it with something. All of the things that a traditional insurance product are like big red no-nos, we can actually take advantage of. So that has translated to some pretty interesting distribution opportunities, both in the D2C days as well as now kind of in our new future where we're a B2B2C employer-based business.
The art of the pivot, as I like to call it. So really something that's really interesting. First of all, both of your ideas for your businesses really came from your time while you were in business school, right? Columbia and Harvard, right? And so interesting for any of our MBA students out there, maybe a time to start locking away those ideas. But you also were basically told something wasn't possible or that something wasn't viable, which is something I've been there. They love telling us that. Whether it's, the 130 no's that you had from investors before landing your first investment with Alinea, or even folks saying like, who would want standalone pet insurance, even though we all freaking love dogs and cats and our pets. So kind of going to the core of Fintech Mavericks, how do you stay true to the vision when everyone tells you it's a pipe dream? And if any advice around just that internal drive that really keeps you going? If you want to start, Eve.
Yeah, I mean, I think same for you, but there was a lot of founder market fit with Phenomena when we started this, and we were deeply passionate about it, and we deeply wanted to create this product in the world, and we wanted to build this company. And for 2 years when we were working, we were meeting up on the weekends, working on it. Like we would wake up in the morning thinking about it, go to bed thinking about it. And when you're so passionate about something, like you're gonna do it, right? And it's hard at the beginning, it's hard in the middle, it's hard now, it's always difficult, and you always have to persist. And so that's why when young founders come to me or first-time founders come to me and they're like, should I do this? You have to do something you really, really believe in. I mean, you really are passionate in, because it's a really hard journey, and if you're not crazy about it, it's gonna make it harder essentially. But I think persistence is, and it's helpful to always just look back at all the successful founders out there. They've all gone through really difficult times, and they've always persisted. And so when you're at that breaking point where you're like, it's not working, you have to tell yourself, like, give it one last chance. I'll give you a quick last story, but when we received over 100 no's from investors, we had one interview with YC left. And it was like our last shot essentially. But you have to kind of always push through, and there's always going to be someone who will say yes at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, Well said. What about for you, Christie?
Honestly, I would echo that, right? I got told pet was too niche and that it wasn't a big enough market. I heard it's just a dog so many times it made me want to vomit.
Oh my God.
And so it was a passion, but I also just knew in my bones that I was right. Like, this is a product that I wanted. It was crazy to me that it didn't exist. And I'm sitting here across from like a 65-year-old male VC telling me it's just a dog. And it's like, dude, you really don't get it. Like, people are treating pets like kids. And it was just so obvious to me that he was wrong and I was right.
Yeah.
And at that point, I still have so much conviction that this market is huge. People are obsessed with their pets. That's not going away. And it's just about making sure you're building the right product that serves them versus trying to shove a product that they don't want down their throat. Mm-hmm. But I totally agree. You have to be obsessed with the problem. You have to be obsessed with the industry. But you have to be obsessed. I guess the nuance I'll add is you have to be obsessed but flexible. So what is that, like strong beliefs loosely held? Mm-hmm. I think where you can go off the rails very quickly if you're obsessed with the solution and you get sort of stuck on one track, one route, and you don't listen to what the market is telling you or your customers are telling you. You have to be nimble, but still like true to your vision and true to, I guess, the original ethos of why you actually got started.
And I think that's really insightful. And maybe just to dive a little bit deeper there, I'm curious, how do you balance what your customers are telling you, what the market's telling you, against your conviction in what you believe is right? Because sometimes those get conflicted.
It's a hard one.
I mean, ideally, they're, the same. I would say if the market is telling you something and your customers are telling you something that you disagree with, you should probably take a hard look in the mirror, right? I mean, and market here is a little bit funny too, because market, I think one market is your customers and your end user, but then there's the market like the VC market, and that's a whole different ballgame. So that's a whole different game that we can talk about. But let's say we're talking about the world of like what your customers are asking for. I think that kind of goes back to what I was trying to say with the strong opinions loosely held is you got to have conviction in like the general direction that you're heading and like the ultimate mission that you're solving for, but you can't be super like religious about exactly what it's going to look like and how you get there. Otherwise, you're going to build something that people actually don't want or don't use.
And same question, but take it from the VC side, because I think that's a really important one, is a lot of times it's the VCs that are pulling you away from your conviction, what the market's telling you, and they have a different vision based on how you get to that $1 billion exit.
Have you ever done such a thing, Drew?
He would never.
I invest too early. I'm investing in founder conviction. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, early on when we were talking to VCs, they were like, you're getting this all wrong. People want a social app. They want a social feed with investing. And we knew in our bones that people actually, the problem was, I don't know what to invest in and I don't know how much to invest. And when you focus on that specific pain point, like having a feed where you see what other random people are investing in doesn't really solve that issue, that problem for the consumer. And so we started, and then the investors were pushing and they were like, you gotta build a social app. And
they do that, don't they?
They do that. and so that's what we did at first, and it wasn't working. And we had to pivot along the way, and that was the moment where we were like, okay, we gotta focus on the problem and not on what the customers are saying they want and not what the VCs are saying they want to see, essentially. You have to really just focus on the problem.
I will say, I'll take this for like a hot second into how to speak VC, if that's okay, and you can pull me back. There is like a finesse and an art of storytelling when it comes to threading that needle, right? Because on the one hand, you have to build what's right for your customers. On the other hand, VCs have a tendency to like follow trends and pattern match. And so you have to find a way to still build the right thing that you know in your bones is the right thing, but get them to invest in your company. And what I've found is it's all just the narrative, right? Like you can still like be truthful about your vision and your mission and tell a narrative that fits the pattern that a VC is looking for. And that becomes a skill in its own, is just trying to like honestly read the room and figure out, okay, if these people are obsessed with social apps, how do we like emphasize that there is a social angle to this while still building the core functionality that we know is actually going to drive the growth? And then like ultimately your job is to just capitalize the company and like you tell the story. And as long as the company does well, everyone's going to be happy. Feel free to like dispute that. I know that's a bit of a hot take.
No, I think that was a really good.
No, I mean, I love that. I think it all comes back to storytelling. And I was talking about this earlier, but most VCs are power law investors.
Yeah.
We're investing in multi-billion dollar outcomes. And so when we're chatting with a lot of companies, it's so early in the story that you need to fill in the blank as a founder.
Exactly.
And so your ability to do that in a creative, thoughtful way that checks the boxes of, call it VC speak, is really important. And really what I'm looking for is I'm looking for you to tell me a multi-billion dollar story, but I'm also looking for you to tell me how we get to the next plateau of growth. And that mixed together, done well, is a great recipe for really any VC, as long as it fits their thesis and what they're investing in to lean in.
I really like the element of, so as a storyteller, also as a writer, it means I'm like a little neurotic, right? So, and I think I'm like an artist. And you're writing my book even, that was a moment where I kept kind of being like, who cares what the people want? I just have to do what I want, right? So I do think it's interesting thinking of that balance, but then understanding basically that like push and pull of the communication, right? Which I think Alinea does really well. Speaking of storytelling, right, is that you have this like direct communication with your audience and your customer because of TikTok and social media. I guess what was the journey like in building that? Because I know for a lot of founders out there, the thought of creating on social is like is big and scary, and I totally understand that. As someone tethered to the internet, it is a big and scary thing. Talk to us about kind of that journey,
of building a social presence. I mean, we tried it all. I mean, we did the campus ambassador programs at first. I was on university campuses handing out donuts when I first started. I read boba teas everywhere, like just to get people to download your app, right, at first. And so the first time that we had a viral spike in terms of downloads and users was when we had our first story on TikTok that went viral. And that's when we realized the power of social media, essentially, and of meeting people where they are. And of course, like now that we've built out such a strong social presence, there's word of mouth effects that are compounding, which are very exciting. And then we're going to be building out a lot more on the growth loops within the app as well this year, which we're excited about as well. But I think to be a Gen Z company today, a consumer Gen Z company, you must have a big brand and a big social media presence. And it was at the core of what we wanted to do with Alinea. We looked at all of these apps out there, and none of their brands resonated with us, like from the eToros to the Fidelities. Like they just didn't speak to young women. And we wanted to build a brand that resonated with people that looked like an Amini.
Yeah, I think that's what's important, right, is as you're building your companies and doing your thing, is if at the end of the day, if all the noise gets way too noisy, just going back in, right, and kind of back to my book story, right, I eventually just would go back in and say, you know what, is this something I need, right? Is this something I need, I wanted? That drive can help get you through those low points. And with Wagmo, I guess I'm curious, so insurance, historically something people don't find trustworthy. Talk to us maybe about that story and how you were able to create a narrative that got people to see this as wellness.
Yeah. I mean, so it was actually kind of the genesis story was after my dog got sick in the middle of business school, I called my little brother and was like, Tyler, you got to get pet insurance. It really saved us. And my brother's like twitchy, smart engineer type and also obsessed with his dog. And his knee-jerk reaction is, why would I do that? Pet insurance is a ripoff. And so he had that like instant knee-jerk distrust, like this is a terrible product. Why would I ever? And so that was actually one of the light bulb moments that we had where we realized, look, I could spend all of my hard-fought venture capital dollars out trying to convince people to change their mind, or I could just build the product that they actually do want and will trust, and it can't be pet insurance. So that was, I guess, sort of foundational in how we structured our offering. I will say the challenge in doing that is you do have to do a lot of education. So I'd say the flip side of that is, while people certainly trust us and the product is built so that it we reimburse your claim in hours via Venmo or PayPal or direct deposit. So it's the exact opposite experience that you would expect from an insurance claim submission. So we build trust and rapport really quickly with the customer, but on the flip side, we do have to explain to them that what they're signing up for is not technically pet insurance. Here's the difference between wellness and insurance. And so this is a whole nother journey that we kind of inadvertently found ourselves on, but we effectively created a whole category around pet wellness. And while that's an amazing thing to be able to do, it comes with it a decent amount of work around education. So not something to take lightly. And again, I don't know that we necessarily set out day one to create a full category, but I very much think we have in many respects. So some pros and cons to it, but ultimately I think the trust piece was where it all started.
Yeah. Wellness, just commercially, for all of us in here, I feel like it's been a hot topic for a while now. I'm curious, has the commercial market for wellness for humans had a positive effect on your education for your product?
I mean, and that was part of the reason why I had such conviction that this was a viable product in its own right, not just as an add-on to an old school pet insurance offering. Because if you look at human health trends, it's played out the exact same. What went from, focus on emergencies and accidents, now people are super obsessed with preventative care and taking control over their health, and wellness is very in vogue as a category for humans. And pet just hasn't quite caught up yet. And so it was so obvious to me that pet was on its way there, but hadn't had anybody actually take the leap and do the innovation, because insurance is not known as an innovative market. So that was a huge, I guess, tailwind, no pun intended, that we leaned into, and especially now that we sell into the employer channel, we basically go in and say, yes, we're pet wellness, but we're also financial wellness. You can even think about this as mental wellness, because people with pets and with healthy, well cared for pets are happier and healthier humans mentally and physically. So it really kind of fits into the wellness category much more broadly beyond just the pet niche, as they say.
Christie, are you on TikTok?
Okay, I'm a long-time lurker. I have never produced a single TikTok.
You should talk to Eve, because I am my TikTok shop for wellness is bazonkers. And it is, anyone else? Oh, just me? Oh, cool. Thank you, someone. Thank you. But the preventative care, right? The frownies, the mouth tape. I mean, this is another route. But I don't know, maybe something there to talk about the wellness and of making sure your pet house is in order.
Yeah, someday I'm going to come to you for some TikTok tips.
I do just have one more, because I'm just so curious. Couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, TikTok was about to be banned. And I'm so curious what the war room was like in your office when that was on the brink of happening.
I was actually in the war room at TikTok's headquarters in New York.
You were in it.
Look at you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we're very close to the TikTok team. That's what I love about TikTok, actually, is they'll invite you in, and they invite us in to do a national campaign in the next few weeks. And so they're really they really look out for small, medium businesses, and they want to help you grow. And so when all of this was happening, they had a war room with some of their clients like us about the situation, and they were so proactive, and they were so communicative, and they were so great at handling all of it. And they were not worried. They were like, it's coming back, don't worry. The other part where we weren't so worried was that all of the short form content that we have on TikTok, we put it on Instagram as well as Reels, and it has done phenomenally well as well. So we've grown our Instagram super well for short form content. So it's more about the messaging that you're cracking, the storytelling, the content itself, and less about the platform.
Interesting.
So there really was a TikTok war room.
Oh, yeah.
Way to go, Drew.
Just a hunch.
That's good journalism. And just really quick, because what it would be maybe your first or best tip for that content creation, because I think oftentimes there's this obsession with like the growth and cracking that viral moment. As someone who creates content every day, I know that is a dangerous route to go down. So I guess how did you, I don't know, figure out like the cracking of the code on social, if you will?
On social. I'm actively looking for content creators. So if anyone here is a content creator who's interested, let us know. We're always looking for new content people, for our users to make content for us. That's huge. We really, I mean, Gen Zs can tell when something's not authentic. And so when someone's making a video about what you're doing and they're not using the product, you can tell. And we can tell. And we also have that gut feeling of like, we know when something's good and it's going to work, and we know when it's not. So we're very good at filtering out content.
So user-generated content then is probably a huge help, i.e. get your audience, if you're trying to grow on social, get them to be the ones to help create more content for you. And when I get that, it's like if I'm wearing a suit from a certain place or whatever and they reshare my outfit, I'm thrilled.
Yeah.
Right? And that's just free work.
Yeah.
Right? Basically.
Yeah.
So free advertisements. I love it. Okay. So I want to kind of, as we start to close out here, I want to get to the heart too of Fintech Mavericks, which is talking about that balance of profit and purpose. So you're both in spaces that are not typically about creating positive change, investing, insurance. How do you balance the profit and purpose in your day-to-day decisions? Are there times where you feel like they're at war with each other, or would you say that they are mutually reinforcing?
I think they are mutually reinforcing. I mean, look, for the first year and a half, Anam and I didn't charge for the product. And we were, again, taking on this, like, let's give this out for free, and we'll figure out monetization later. I am not in that mindset anymore. And I think that's one of the biggest learnings I had building this company. We should have started charging way earlier, and we should have started understanding way earlier what people were willing to pay for. And people, I mean, people will pay $120 a year for them to learn how to invest, for them to get the guidance, the confidence, for them to have wealth management services. It's when you compare what we charge to a financial advisor, it is so much cheaper and so much more affordable to the masses. And so, again, I think we are doing good. We are helping people. We are helping them grow their wealth, become financially independent, and we are trying to make it work on all fronts, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like that. I think as founders, there's really nothing wrong with starting to price yourself, right? And not being afraid to do it earlier, and do it in a smart way, right? And that's how they are mutually reinforcing. Yeah. All right, Christie, had a moment to think.
Yeah, insurance is a tough one, right? Because it's one of those business models that, like, just the economics of it are that, technically speaking, the more people use it, the less profit an insurance company makes. So it's a delicate dance here. But I think one big learning for us is, one, insurance and ceding risk and risk sharing, like, that will forever be around. And so if you just accept that as a truth, then it really becomes about, one, transparency with your customer and doing it for the right reasons. And so what that ended up translating for us was, obviously, our heart's in it for the right reason. Our mission is to inspire and empower responsible pet parenting. And the tools that we put out actually help people be more responsible pet parents at the end of the day, and can make better financial or better health decisions for their pets, regardless of their financial situations. So there's real passion and mission behind that. transparency has been key to us. So from the very earliest of days, I remember like when we would have to reject a claim, for instance, for a pre-existing condition. This is one we get all the time. Do I want to cover pre-existing conditions? So badly. It would make me so happy to be able to do that, but it would put me out of business immediately. And so part of what we've learned is if you just communicate to the customer, look, we don't cover pre-existing conditions. Nobody does. Here's why. Because we ultimately have to stay in business to help you budget for the other things down the line. And if we were to cover pre-existing conditions, we would not have a viable business model. So there's some degree of just helping people understand why it operates in the way that it does that gets people over the line. And to your point about people want to pay, you also have to really hone in on what exactly is the value people derive from your product. For an insurance or an insurance-like product, it's really not the dollar savings. Like, I think that it's easy to jump there, but it's really the peace of mind. Mm-hmm. It's the not having to think about the money. And like, to ascribe a dollar value to that is a very different equation than to think, oh, I put $5 in, like, I'm gonna get 50 back, right? Like, it's not quite that straightforward, even though I think a lot of people wanna go there. But again, I'm an insurance enthusiast, so I'm sure there are dissenters out there.
I think we need that. I think we need some insurance enthusiasts out there. Any insurance enthusiasts in the room? Yeah, we got.
It's okay. You won't be judged. You're among friends.
You have friends. You have friends in this room. Okay. No,
I do think it's just really important to state, though. I know we're talking about coming back to a purpose, but I think one big purpose that you guys are alluding to, but you're not necessarily like touching on, is the fact that you are focusing on literacy of two very important spaces: financial literacy and insurance literacy. Historically, people buy insurance, but they don't fully understand what they're buying.
Right.
And these are two brands, two founders that are building companies that obviously your product forces you to teach, but also you guys are making sure that that is a big part of your purpose as a business, which I think is really important in the world we live in today. Literacy is everything, especially for the next generation.
I want a button for our podcast eventually, one of those sound buttons, but that's the Maverick moment. Thank you. You're all here. Actually, can we do something together? A round of applause for the Maverick moment, Woo! There you go. That's the sound effect. Okay, final question for you both. If you could go back to the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
Just keep going. Just keep going. Honestly, like a lot of the time, like when you're at this breaking point and nothing's working, usually something great will happen right afterwards. And we often forget that, like in the darkest or like hardest times, like a bright new window is opening up, and something happened for a reason, and something else is gonna come up. And so, yeah, I'll leave you with that. But persistence is everything in what we do.
Full circle. I think you're absolutely right. For me as a founder, I would say that and abundance. Just whatever work, whatever therapy, however many TikToks I got to watch to get me out of scarcity mindset and into abundance, and always seeing that the next door is going to open, the next one, right? And just being okay with those fast no's. That I think is what I would tell myself a couple years ago. But
this is like the third time someone said scarcity mindset today, so I think I need, like, the universe is telling me I need to pay attention to that, and I'm going to go Google it or TikTok it or something.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to get you on the platform. This is ad. Anyways,
this is great.
I know, it's good ad. Yeah. Anyways, did you have time?
Yeah. Okay, mine, I'll go more tactical then, but I agree with that advice deeply. More tactically, I wish I would have slowed down when I hired people. So I was coming from an industry that, like, as far removed from startup land as you can possibly imagine. I didn't know what a product manager was. I didn't know what growth marketing was, right? And so I had to go from not knowing what words to use to put in a job description to actually hiring the person. And what that meant was I hired a whole bunch of the wrong people, like many times over. And in some respect, it was all part of the process at the end of the day. But if I would do it again, and my advice to folks like just starting is to slow down when you're hiring and really think about jobs to be done. This is now something that, like, my team just chants over and over when we're, like, building out a recruiting process, is, yeah, you can have the most beautifully worded ChatGPT written job description, but what are like the 7 jobs to be done that this person actually needs to come in and execute on day 1, day 2, day 3, and start there when you hire. And then it doesn't really matter what the title is or what the pedigree is. It's just about, can they actually do the damn job? And that sounds so simple and obvious, but boy, did I miss that many times over in the early days.
Same. Really echo that.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's a lesson hard learned and an expensive lesson.
All right. Well, this is Fintech Maverick. So well said. Drew, you're a founder.
I am a founder.
We all shared.
I'll just say, as a founder, there's a lot of things you have control over, and there's a lot of things you don't have control over. And there's a lot of market headwinds and tailwinds that are just going to happen. And so I am just a big believer that you just need to stay around long enough to get lucky. If you
Persist.
if you have very similar.
There are
but
a lot of market cycles out there.
It's true. It's true. And you just gotta, I mean, sometimes survival mode is necessary, but as long as you're continuing to build, no matter how fast or slow, as long as you stay around long enough, the market will catch you again and you can ride the wave. But there's many companies that had really huge upticks up and to the right at different stages of their 10-year run. And those were the momentum swings that got them to where they are today.
Well said. Well, Eve, Christie, Drew, myself, thank you so much, all of us, for being here. And thank you all for joining us on our first episode of Fintech Mavericks.